the second video in the Fundamental Tools series, and in this lesson we will be looking at a group of tools on the Modify tool panel: Move, Copy, and Rotate, as well as working with object snaps. Object snaps allow us to select precise points on graphic objects. Without object snaps, if I wanted to draw a line and started at a point on this circle, the best I could do would be to pick as closely as I possibly could and then draw my line. But if we zoom in, we can see that that is not connected. With the use of object snaps, I could draw that line, and I'll hold down the Shift key and right click on the mouse, and that brings up this object snap selection menu. In this case, I'll grab a quadrant object snap, and you'll see that that allows me to snap to an exact point, the quadrant, with the quadrants being the 490-degree points of a circle. I'll left click to accept the object snap. You can see on the screen that it shows a unique object snap marker to that quadrant, and as well as it's showing the tooltip. I'll left click, accept that, draw my line, and this time it is precisely connected to that quadrant point on the circle. I'll start another line command, Shift right click, and as well we have a center point object snap. To activate that, I would hover on the edge of the circle, and you'll see that that brings the object snap available. Snap, and I'll left click to accept that center point object snap, and that allows me to draw my line from exactly from the center point. Again, I'll start a line command, and we'll look at how to snap to some points on a line. Shift right click, and we can select an endpoint object snap, and you'll see that that allows me to snap precisely to the end point of a line. Shift right click. I'm going to select a midpoint object snap. All lines have a midpoint that we can snap to. Use my erase command and remove some of these graphics. This time I'm going to start a line command, and we're going to look at a combination of object snaps that we can use. The first being nearest. Nearest allows me to grab any random point on a piece of geometry. I'll left click, and you'll see that it snapped to the point where my nearest object snap marker was. Now I'm going to shift right click and grab the perpendicular object snap. This, as you can see, will grab a point on this line perpendicular to the original nearest object snap point. So we used a combination of near and perpendicular. Again, I'll start my line command, and we'll look at the intersection object snap. Anywhere graphics intersect, it will create this snap point, the intersection snap point. And so now you can see that that started my line right at the intersection of those objects. So thus far we've been getting our object snaps by holding down the Shift key and right clicking to bring up this object snap menu. In AutoCAD we have an option to create a set of what we refer to as running object snaps, and if we go down to our tool tray, we see this icon with a square on it, and if I right click it, you'll see that we have that same object snap selection menu. Whichever of these object snaps I click on and check will be available when I turn this running object snap utility on. I'm going to select endpoint, midpoint, center, quadrant object snap. Again, that's the 4 snap points on a circle at the 90-degree points. Each 90-degree point has a quadrant object snap. And we'll select intersection. And I don't want extension on, so I'll click it and turn that off. And this will create a good running object snap set for us to work with right now. I'll come down here and left click on the object snap icon, and you can see that it turns at a shade of blue, indicating that it's on. I'll click it again, and you can see that it returns to its gray color, indicating that the tool is turned off. I'm going to click on it and turn it on. I'll start my line command, and you'll see that now these object snaps are available to me when I get close to that area of the graphic object. Here's our center. Here we can see our 4 quadrant points on the circle. There's our end point and a midpoint and an intersection. And I will right click on my object snap icon again here, and let's turn on perpendicular and nearest as well. There would be our near. I can snap near to any point on any graphic object, and again there's its counterpart, perpendicular, so we can utilize the combination of near to perpendicular. Now we're going to look at the first of the 3 tools on the Modify tool panel. The first, here's our Modify tool panel right here. We're on the Home tab, the Modify panel, and the first tool that we'll look at is the Move command. That's this icon with the 4 arrows. I choose the tool, and at the command prompt you can see that it's asked me to select objects. I'll pick on this circle and hit enter to tell it that I'm done creating my selection set. And you can see that it now asks me to specify a base point. A base point, we can think of it as the point where we want to grab onto the object we're going to move. In this case, I'll grab the center point. I'm going to turn ortho on, which will constrain me to vertical and horizontal movements. And I can now move that object. I'm going to click my undo key up here to undo that action. I'm going to reselect the Move tool, select the circle, enter, use the center point for my base point of displacement, grabbing on with my object snap, left clicking to accept that object snap, ortho on. I'm going to drag the circle the direction that I want to move it, and I'm going to enter 6 at the command prompt and hit enter. The 6 indicated that I wanted it to move the circle 6 units. In this case, that would be 6 inches in the direction that I was dragging the object. That would be utilizing our direct distance entry. Select the object, grab my base point, drag it the direction I would like to move it, enter the distance I would like to move it, 3 in this case, and hit enter. And that moves the object at a specified distance. As well, I could move the object from one snap point, in this case the center, and I could snap it to the end point of this line, moving the center point of the circle to the end point of this line. I could move the circle from this quadrant point to the midpoint of that line. So you see how we can use the object snaps in conjunction with our Move command to move that circle from one specific point to another. Let's move the circle back up off of these graphics. Now we'll look at the Copy command, also located on the Modify panel right below the Move tool. I'll select the copy tool. Again, the command prompt asks me to select objects. I will select my circle and hit enter to confirm my selection set. Again, it wants us to specify a base point, or the point that we would grab a hold of the object to perform our copy operation. I will grab the center point, and now anywhere that I left click, it's going to create a copy of the circle, and I hit enter to terminate the copy command. I'll use the erase command that we looked at in the last video lesson to remove those objects. Now again, I'll copy the circle, use the center point. I'll come down and turn ortho on. I can drag the object the direction that I would like to copy it in, and again I will go 3, enter, and enter to terminate the copy command. So that time we utilized again direct distance entry, and I copied the circle 3 inches to the right. And just like with the move command, I could copy it from this location to, let's say, the end point of this line, again using object snaps. And you'll notice that it leaves me in the copy command until I hit that final enter, and that terminates the command. The third tool that we'll look at on the modify panel here will be the rotate command, located here to the right of the move command. I'll click on the tool, and it asks me to select objects I'd like to rotate. I'm going to select this group of lines and hit enter to tell it that I'm done selecting objects, or to confirm my selection set. And again, it asks us for a base point. That would be, in this case, the center point of my rotation. I'll snap to the midpoint of this horizontal line, and now you can see that I have the ability to rotate this. I have ortho turned off right now, so I can rotate it around the full 360 degrees of the circle. I'll hit undo, and we always have that option to use undo to put us back to where we were before we did that command. So I'm going to start the rotate command, reselect my objects, and this time I'll grab the end of the horizontal line as my base point. And now it says specify rotation angle. Rather than dynamically rotate it, I'm going to enter 45, specifying a 45-degree rotation. Something about entering degrees of rotation. In AutoCAD, counterclockwise is the positive direction of rotation, which in this case we entered 45. That was a positive number, so it rotated it counterclockwise. If I would want to rotate it in the clockwise direction, I would enter minus 45, and that tells AutoCAD to rotate it in that negative direction of rotation, or clockwise. Two things I'd like to point out in closing with this lesson is, one, we've worked with the ortho command, which is this in the tool tray. It looks like the 90-degree angle, and I can turn that on and off by left clicking on it. I can also toggle that on and off with the F8 function key on my keyboard. That's in the top row of keys on the keyboard, F8. And again, ortho constrains us to horizontal or vertical motions only. And we were also toggling on and off the running object snaps. by clicking on this icon. I can toggle that on and off with the F3 function key on my keyboard as well. So that's something you might want to start getting used to using, as it's much faster to just toggle those on and off from the keyboard rather than having to go down to your tool tray and toggle those on and off each time. That concludes part 2 in the Fundamental Drafting series. I would recommend watching this video as many times as needed to master these tools and then move on to the third part of this series.